What's up, everybody? Another episode of the Heart is a Muscle podcast. What are we going to be talking about today?
What's up, everybody? We are going to be talking about how do you know if your relationship is successful or not? And when you find that out, what do you do?
Yeah, and we bust some myths about what traditional success looks like in relationships.
This is the relationship myth busting.
That's right.
That's what we're going to change the name to.
Yeah, but we really nail this one. Like, there's a lot of gems, so maybe get some paper out.
Get some pen and paper and hang into the end, because the real juice comes at the end of the squeeze. All right.
That's right. That's right, baby. Exactly.
Enjoy, everybody. All right. Oh, there we go. There she goes. Hello, everybody.
Whoa, earthquake. Oh.
Yeah, some turbulent waves back here. Need to weigh down the back of the computer stand. Anyways, this is the Heart is a Muscle podcast.
We've got a really awesome episode.
Yeah.
Like, I am pumped up to answer this question. We haven't even talked this out ourselves.
We've had some coffee.
We've had some coffee.
Let's
talk
about relationships, everybody. Time to get after it with relationship. All right. So, Jordan, what are we talking about today?
We are going to be answering the question, giving our answers to the question of what makes a relationship successful.
Yes. The old timeless question of, are we doing this right?
Well, yeah, but also, so often in our culture, in our puritanical culture, maybe a patriarchal culture, I'm not sure, that the only measure of success of a relationship is staying together, is it not ending.
So duration is the traditional metric of a successful relationship. So if you've been together for 50 years, then you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said, duration.
Yeah, duration is a great word.
Yeah,
chew on that.
And one. Basically just not breaking up. Like, if you break up, that's a failure. If you get a divorce, that's a failure. That means the relationship failed.
It totally failed.
And I just think that's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, because sometimes the best thing for a relationship is for it to take on a new phase.
That's
and sometimes that phase is the phase of dissolving.
Yep.
Liquidation.
Yeah, liquidation. Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you know, when actually a successful relationship is to end it? Success is to end. How do you know when the relationship has been as successful as it is going to be, and as it's invited to be, before you're invited into something else? I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, that is the question. Well, before we really dive into that one, so what do you think actually is a successful relationship?
Okay, I don't have a very succinct way of putting this, so I'll just start blabbing about it.
Yeah, go for it.
It seems to me like a relationship is successful when you are learning what you need to learn in it about yourself. Like, relationships, it just seems like the function of relationships, a big function of relationships, is facilitating your own evolution, facilitating your own maturation, the healing process of having somebody else be your primary attachment figure, like it was when you were a child, when you were a kid. And kind of when we get into a new relationship with somebody, they become our new primary attachment figure at the beginning. And so I feel like the function of a healthy relationship is to mature that dynamic, where you start building a relationship with your parts where you are your primary attachment figure, and your partner gets to be the secondary attachment figure, the supporting attachment figure. Like, I feel like that is kind of the, like, if I think about it in an individual sense, like that is the invitation for every individual in relationship. And so it just, and the only way that we can do that, evolve in that way, is through actual relationship with somebody else. So, to me, like a successful relationship is when the relationship is carrying you through that process. And when you are showing up for the relationship in that way.
So yeah, if I understand you right, then a successful relationship doesn't reach like a point of like, yep, we're successful now, and now it's over. It's a continuous thing.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I think that's why I love our relationship so much, is because we're not loyal to like staying. I mean, we are committed to each other and all of that, but
I'm not loyal to Stan.
But
that's what you're trying to say here.
It just seems like we've always been more loyal to our own evolution, more loyal to our own like honesty and stuff, and like evolving the relationship, than we are of like trying to stay together. Like it seems like, you know, we've always had a level of uncertainty in our relationship of like, yeah, we, like, the other person could leave at any time and we won't make each other wrong for that. Like that is part of like the uncertainty built into this relationship, because that way then we can meet as individuals instead of as you know, kind of like enmeshed.
Yeah, enmeshed codependent.
Yeah.
Codependencies.
And not that, I mean, God, I started dating you when I was hella codependent, and I still have codependent tendencies, but also I think that's why I would consider, like, even if we ended tomorrow, I would consider our relationship a huge success because of how much I have grown and evolved and healed, and how much I have learned to love you better. I think that's the other side of, you know, what relationships are inviting us into is yes, our own healing with our own parts and loving ourselves properly, but also learning how to love somebody else properly.
Yeah. So what does that look like, loving someone else successfully?
I'll just kind of go back to the primary attachment thing. So like when we were kids, when we were younger, like it was our primary attachment figure, our parents, our guardian, you know, whoever, our grandparents, that were attuning to our needs. Like it was a very like receptive, you know, kind of relationship. And as we mature, I think it's really important to start to mature those parts of us that just want to receive, or just want like need our partners to be a better version of our parents for us. And so for me, like that's what it's looked like for me to love you better, is to release you from needing to be the dad that I never had, like to release you from needing to be like literally anything other than you are. Like there was a while there I would get so triggered at the thought that you were attracted to other people, even because my parts could not and like that's a part of my process, and I think a part of the process that a lot of people need to go through. But like, so I would make you wrong for like not living up to be my like salvation fantasy, because there were parts of me that were still in that dynamic of like the parent-child relationship and still trying to work that out. And so like loving you properly has looked like setting you free to be your own wild ass masculine free ass
so
self.
Wild. If only you knew how wild I was, everybody. Yeah.
But just like wild inside of yourself, like wild to have your own thoughts, to be attracted to whoever you are attracted to have your own fantasies, like like I don't need to like control that in you. Like if I'm trying to control that in you, I'm not loving you properly.
Yeah, you're not trying to domesticate me.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yep. That's a sign of I would say when the goal of the relationship is to really domesticate each other.
Yeah. And to being the mommy and daddy you never got.
Or yeah, just to being like a softer, like complacent version of
More codependent version of
yeah.
themselves. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, because the thing that I think is kind of a key note here is that yeah, we've both embraced the wildness of each other
Mm-hmm.
and not tried to tame or cage or fence that in, but really to offer the energy of like, well, you're free to go, but like there's also a lot to stay for.
Yeah, and that's what I love about our relationship is it just keeps evolving. Like we were just talking this morning of like, damn baby, looks like we're going on another adventure. Like we're becoming new people again together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know, because that was the thing that to me kind of stood out when we were having that conversation of like, yeah, like there's a lot of adventure to be had. And if you're not really seeking out adventure, then like, what are you doing? You're kind of like trying to nest or like
To armor yourself
simplify.
from uncertainty.
Yeah. Armor yourself from uncertainty.
I'm feeling very poetic today.
Yeah.
I may not be using very accessible language,
Oh,
but
that's okay.
you
It's all
know, my
good.
people will get it. My
Yeah, I was
people are
gonna say,
super
like,
fucking smart.
we have such intelligent people listening
Yeah.
to this podcast that they'll get it. You can say whatever you want, Jordan, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, nailed it.
Yeah. They'll be
Absolutely.
like, I already know that.
But yeah, success. So when a successful relationship happens, yeah, it's I think for me, there's certain things that yeah are traditional landmarks that people use as success. Duration is definitely one of them. You know, if a relationship lasts for a long time, then it must be good. You know, because why would someone stay in something that's not good? Codependency.
Yeah, lots of reasons.
Yeah. Shame, guilt,
Not great
codependency,
reasons. Fear,
fear,
terror of like
terror. There's actually probably
seeing.
more reasons that people actually stay in relationships longer than they should than like reasons they stay
Then they leave.
than they
Yeah,
leave. Yeah.
totally. That's a good point. I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, but I also think like, for the people who jump out of relationships a little too soon, it can be because they are being invited to like that relationship is inviting them to learn how to show up more vulnerably, to show up different in relationships, to hold the conversation of relationships differently, either to learn to love themselves better or to love the other person better. And instead of actually taking themselves up on that invitation, they'll just leave.
Yeah. There's also the yeah, what would you really describe that of like the denial of what would you say, like taking responsibility of your own like shit that needs working out?
Yeah, it's like what it reminds me of the hero's journey. Like you sometimes like a relationship is inviting you to go on a hero's journey.
Yeah.
And like jumping out is like refusing the call of your own hero's journey.
Yeah. I know we were just listening to that book, The Midnight Library.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating book about this person who's reflecting back on all the possible lives she could have taken because her life really sucks, at least in the beginning of the book. And yeah, when you look back on all of those critical moments where you had like a choice, usually in life choices have like the adventurous side and then the like safer side. And you know, for how many generations have we all traditionally been told you should always choose the safer side because you know what, someone's gonna if you choose the adventurous side, then you're on your own. Like no one's gonna come and save you. Well, the truth is no one's gonna save you on the safe side either because the safe side's not safe.
Yep. Yep.
And
That's so
so
true.
that's the other thing too when it comes to success in relationships. A lot of the times there's kind of this false conception of what's safe. What's the safe choice? And that's where I think, if say a relationship ends where two people go their separate ways, I would say in a lot of times that could be a really successful relationship as like a chapter in someone's life where they chose the more adventurous path because they realize, well, if we just stay together in this like safe, comfortable like spot, we're not really going to move our life along. Our life's just going to move, but it's not going to move along. It's not going to go anywhere.
The plot won't move along. Time will just pass.
The plot, you'll just be stuck kind of reliving the same plot over and over again. And
oh, isn't that the truth?
Like there's, certain chapters in your life where that's a good thing. If you're having kids where you need a lot of stability because you're trying to focus your energy on something that really needs your energy, that like can't survive without it, then yeah, it is a good thing to go into a less adventurous phase because you're all going on your own adventure with kids.
Yeah, that's adventure in and of itself.
Every adventure needs to have a little bit of like stability to it. Otherwise, you're living the rock star life. Yeah. But, if there's opportunity that a relationship can go in a really adventurous phase and you have that like pivotal point of choosing that, and just because there's fear or doubt or because it's uncertain, like traditionally uncertain, then and you choose the like more certain path, then I don't know, you're giving up really experiencing a lot more depth and breadth and I guess you could call it knowledge or learning or wisdom or something about the relationship. Because I think one of the things, like one of the tropes I think we really want to cut down the middle is that like a relationship ending does not by default mean a bad relationship.
No, not at all. Like, as far as I'm concerned, our relationship is a success already because of how much it has helped me let love in, let more love in, and to give more love. And so it just feels like everything else now is bonus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we also want to be obvious about the opposite too, of like, if a relationship is really hardy and like stays really evolutionary and it's always going and it lasts for a long time and it never ends and it goes to your deathbed and you live an entire life together, that is absolutely a success too.
That's right. And might happen.
Well,
happen here.
We're gonna have to find out in the moment that it happens, because that's one of those things that you never know like how successful your life is until you're at the last moments of it and you can look back and say like, well, what did I leave behind?
Yeah, that's right.
And relationships are no different than any other venture you go into.
Oh, okay, something it's a tiny tangent, but it's actually really powerful. So
tiny tangent.
I'd like to go on a tiny tangent.
This episode of Tiny Tangents
with Jordin James. That feeling, because this feeling has driven me so much of like, I don't want to look back on my life and regret anything or realize I was being invited into something that I didn't like take myself up on, that I refused an invitation to evolve or to experience something. But like, that feeling is just going to be there. Like when I look back on my life, it's like only with that view will I actually see what I was being invited into. Will I actually see like what actually mattered? And so I think I'm planning on looking back on my life and being very proud of how I spent it. But also like, I've got to be real with myself that there is going to be some element of regret or of grief of the invitations I didn't take myself up on. And so I think that's kind of just the same with relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Is, like David White talks about this with grief. Like when you lose somebody, you become aware of what they were inviting you into that you didn't take them up on,
Mm-hmm.
that you weren't aware of. You were focused on other
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also true with relationships, is like, yeah, there's going to be some invitations that you, like, I don't know, take yourself up on, but also there'll be some that you just weren't ready for, you couldn't see.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things too that in my life, when it came to relationships, there was tons of opportunities I took up and eventually, like, very quickly was like, nah, this is a lame adventure. Or like, this is not an adventure that's gonna really like show me anything about myself. Or
Mm-hmm.
um it's a
Like,
like a relationship or an adventure that's kind of like um really a short little episode,
mm-hmm.
and you're just like, well, that was great, but I'm ready to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone has that phase or something like that, but when especially for people who are like dating or like trying to like be in relationship, there's this weird thing now too also where there's this expectation for everyone to like be in relationship, and when you're not in relationship, you're like a rogue, or you're some old,
Mm-hmm.
like, spinster.
Mm-hmm. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you, like, oh,
Yeah.
you couldn't find someone that's compatible with you, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's so much cultural lineage that goes with that, where
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to fit into this role.
Yeah.
Your role is to get hitched with the minimum viable product that comes your way.
Yeah. Then okay, so the other thing that I wanted to say about, like, I love that you brought up, like, sometimes relationships, or there's like the more adventurous path you can take, or the more like kind of boring path, maybe, or stagnant path. Maybe
Mhm,
that's kind of the
mhm,
opposite of that. And so often that adventurous path, it might look like something in the outer world of like moving, or, starting a new job, or having kids, or, whatever, changing your lifestyle up. But it also so often, the true adventurous path is actually you showing up more vulnerably, is actually
mhm,
like all of the parts of you that you are trying to hide in your relationship, hide from yourself, maybe
mhm,
even actually bringing those parts into like actual outer world conversation with your partner,
mhm, mhm.
whatever level of honesty that is. Like very often that is the invitation. And so yeah, I think I I would just encourage people who are thinking about breaking up or something like that to first ask themselves, what parts of themselves are they hiding
Mhm,
from the relationship?
mhm,
Like, so for some of us, that might be vulnerable parts, like people that tend more toward avoidant attachment.
mhm,
For some of those parts, it might be actually being more vulnerable, sharing more of yourself. But also folks that are anxious attachment, or like more codependent, that might be uh sharing the parts that say no, sharing the parts that aren't comfortable with something,
mhm.
sharing the parts that are setting more boundaries. So like whatever parts you're hiding, I think that's like my definition of a successful relationship, is when you have brought more parts of you into the relational dynamic, and like integrated your parts into being in relationship with other people,
Mhm.
and you're hiding yourself less and less.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were getting a good run there for a second. The Yeah, because I think it's such an ethereal thing to try and like nail down, like, oh, how successful is this, Are we keeping score on this relationship? And it really has to do with like how is the dynamic like enriching your life?
Yeah. How is it bringing you alive?
Mhm.
Yeah, because actually that question that you just asked, it made me realize like we can't necessarily like nail this down with our mind parts
Mhm.
of like, here's what makes a successful relationship. Like this isn't going to be understood logically by our mind parts. This isn't a realm that our mind parts are even like very skilled in. Like our mind parts are skilled in a
Well,
lot of other things, but I guess I just mean like the success of a relationship will be rooted in the heart and our heart
yeah,
parts.
because I think when you try and like put metrics around the successful relationship, you really kind of disconnect it from a lot of the meaningful parts of it.
Yes.
When you're like, well, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, how like duration shouldn't be like the uh default metric of how good a relationship is, because everybody at one point in a time, unless you've never had a relationship, has probably been in a relationship longer than you should have been, or longer than like you knew you like wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is that, you know, if we're going off of a metric of, oh yeah, here's what makes a successful relationship: how long it lasts, how much money you make together, like how much shit you own together,
Mm-hmm.
how many babies you pump out, you know, all these like quantifiable things that you do together. Those all can be things that you can like reflect back on and be like, wow, look at all this great stuff we did.
Yeah, and be proud of.
But if that's all you're doing and like there's no personal development and like relationship development, because there's 3 relationships in a relationship, you know?
Yeah, say more about that.
This is the fundamental thing that a lot of people don't even realize. There's 3 relationships in a relationship. There's you with yourself, your partner with themselves, and then the 2 of you together, right?
That's right, baby.
And so like, if all 3 of those are in the dumps, then like I don't think that's a very successful relationship. And the
Wow. That's such a good way of putting it. It's so clear.
because there's nothing that is like what is that enriching life,
Yeah.
you know? Yes, I think one of the fundamental things that we're all trying to do here is enrich our own lives in whatever way that is, whether it's
Mhm.
money, experiences, possessions, whatever is meaningful to you for whatever reason. If you're not doing something towards that, then like you're not really living. You're kind
Yeah.
of just existing.
Yeah.
And how many
Mhm.
relationships are just kind of existing
Mhm.
for the sake of like um not being brave enough to
Mhm.
stir the pot a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a successful relationship um doesn't just exist.
That's right.
Like,
It's dynamic.
right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a little arborarium that you put some little critters in there. And if nothing happens, you're like, well, this is just a jar of dirt. Nobody cares.
Mhm.
It's just existing here. But, if it starts to grow life and then it goes through cycles and then it has a dying phase and a growing phase and a like golden age and then a silver age and then, all these different like phases, you're going to be like, wow, this is such a great little thing in my life.
That's so true. Yeah. That doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to feel the same all the time. Of course, it's going to be dynamic.
Hmm.
And that's part of what's beautiful about relationships too. Is that they change,
Hmm.
like my relationship with myself changes all the time. Your relationship with yourself changes, like, and that just inherently changes this, the own entity of our, relationship coming
Hmm.
together. Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, because like relationships, they're governed by, the laws of nature more than anything else, of like death and rebirth.
Hmm.
Kind of, it's not just necessarily like a logical linear path. Like relationships aren't linear. They're
Hmm.
they're s- they're very cyclical.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, a relationship is the sum of the parts of the relationship.
Hmm.
So if you are a human being, you're going to change. You're going to like cyclically go through life. You're going to have lives and deaths in your life. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. You're going to have wins and you're going to have losses. You're going to have stagnant phases and really energetic phases, and like how well you can synchronize with each other and like add to each other's experience. That's like where the energy of the relationship actually like forms.
Yeah, totally. And the real art of relationship is, and something that's just like constantly being negotiated, it seems like, is how can we strengthen this connection we have between us in a way that also enlivens and holds a big enough container for our own relationships with ourselves. And it seems like a successful relationship will just keep getting bigger and bigger, holding more and more space as we bring more parts of us, more parts of our own relationships into the space that we share together. Because like in real codependent relationships, there's an understanding, or like in a, when I am needing you to be something for me, like that really that makes our relationship hold a pretty small container for the parts of you that you're allowed to share. And so a successful relationship, or a sign of success, is that the relationship keeps evolving to hold more and more space for like the parts of us that we bring to it.
Yeah, because one of the things that, we've seen with a lot of people, where there'll be one side of the relationship that'll be growing and expanding and moving towards new horizons, or just like opening their eyes to new possibilities. And the other half of the relationship is trying to like consolidate, or trying to limit, what's going on in life, or trying to, hold things back so that like there can be the illusion of stability.
Yeah, that's
or at
right.
least the illusion of less change. And that's where, you really have to start like literal open negotiations.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because like when one person and their relationship with themselves is evolving, like the relationship holding the container for both people, it will be stretched if the other person doesn't necessarily evolve with them. And sometimes like even within a very healthy relationship, two people might evolve separately. They might actually evolve apart. And so I think that's the dynamic that I really want to highlight here, is that does not mean that relationship was a failure. It was the exact like cocoon. It was the exact container that you needed to evolve the way that you needed to together. And then now it's like your adventure is taking you in two different directions, and that doesn't mean that it's a failure.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's very accurate, and it's very non-traditional with kind of the way that I don't know if we're ever really trained like what a relationship is supposed to be, because we're so poorly trained on how to relate to ourselves and to each other.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you'll figure it out. So go figure it out.
Yeah, or like the adults haven't even figured it out, so
Right.
they can't help us. Yeah.
And what I see with a lot of people too is where they've kind of just consolidated themselves into this very neatly presented package of like, this is me, and I am proper, I am polite, I
barely have any needs.
I have barely any needs. I actually
won't ask for
I
them.
have no needs.
Yeah.
Because I am totally self-sufficient
and low maintenance
and very low maintenance, and I will never tell you exactly what's going on, because you don't need to know what's going on. You need to perceive my ever-present success.
Yeah.
Or my ever-present like virtue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm afraid of you rejecting me if I show you the parts that feel weak to me.
And then how many relationships have we seen with two people who are exactly like that, who have come together, and now their relationship is that exact same thing where it's like everything here is just absolutely perfect. We have our 2.5 kids, we've got our dog, we've got this house, we've got the car,
enough money.
we've got enough money, we've got all the things. And then it's like, oh wow, great. Like what do you guys do for fun? We have lots of fun. Let me tell you about it. We sit on the couch and then we go to sleep. It's just there's just really no depth to it.
Yeah.
And you got to be somewhat careful too, because not everyone has to have like a thrilling life.
Yeah, depth isn't for everyone. And it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
But if it's for you, you got to know it's for you, and you got to own that and stop trying to fit your life into like too small of a container.
Yeah, because
that was another tiny tangent with Jordin James.
This tiny tangent with Jordin James brought to you by
coffee.
By coffee.
By caffeine.
Yeah, like what I'm trying to illustrate here is not so much that like if your relationship is, let's just say it's boring, but that boring relationship is what really enriches you. That's a successful relationship. But if you're trying to like hide the truth behind like a veil of supremacy, or like what would you call it, like very polished status quo, and that's like the only aim that you're trying to do is just kind of hold up, it's the whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses type of thing of like, well, we have to maintain this like socially acceptable veneer.
Yeah. We're primarily in this relationship to impress everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like threaten impressing other people, like the admirability of our relationship, by bringing my actual true honest self to it.
Yeah, because that could be another trap within itself where I mean, so much of that stems from, like we were saying, two individuals who are trying to really hide the truth of themselves because they're so preoccupied with living up to an expectation. And as long as you can live up to that expectation in the eyes of everybody else, then you're being a successful like human, or a successful citizen, successful consumer. And
successful consumer.
Really what happens in that dynamic so often, I would say almost 100% of the time, is that eventually like you're going to change. Like life will change you. And eventually your tolerance for kind of just not really actually even being your own self is going to shine through.
It'll get more painful to keep hiding from yourself than it is to bring yourself to the light.
And at that point, like that can really disrupt a lot of things. And this is the thing also too, when like when we meet a lot of people and they're like, yeah, my relationship sucks, it's like, no, we can't communicate, we barely have sex, we're always fighting. It's just like, all right, this is a great place to start, because you've got so much stuff that you can improve. Like a lot of people are always right on the doorstep to say like, I'm out of here, fuck all this, I'm not taking any of this shit. And it's like, well, let's take a step back, because there's so much that you can improve here.
Right.
It probably is actually to your benefit to hang around for a while and let's work through some of these things, because you're coming up to your basically limit of understanding of how to do a relationship.
Yeah. Like that's the time where you learn something new.
Right. Because it's literally where most people get to, where they have this logical choice of like, well, I don't know what to do and I can leave. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do, so I guess I'm going to fucking leave. And like, why do divorces happen? Well, because people can't figure out what to do about the poor quality of their relationship.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's part of it. The other part of it is sometimes people just genuinely evolve differently too.
Yeah. I mean, there's always that. And like, I know many people, I think it's also kind of a sign of the times too, where people in all types of ages are realizing where it's like, yeah, like this relationship was not that great in the beginning and I'm kind of over it. i.e. I'm kind of evolving past it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times you can, like, you meet people and you can tell that there's still like some emotional connection, but the two parties are just like, they're literally out of options. Like, I've tried everything. You know, it's awesome when you hear someone say, I've tried everything, because you're just like, bullshit. Because we've got some things for you to try.
Mm-hmm.
And like, because if you would have tried everything, you would already be gone, because you would know like there's nothing more for you to do. Because you're still hanging on there, you know, there's something else either that needs to be happening or that you need to make a choice about.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we're getting off the topic here, but like, when you know you're so focused on putting out this persona of like a successful relationship that like is just so immaculate, you can set yourself up for such a like crumbling disaster, because you're not doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Like
think
the work of vulnerability.
the work of
Or
all of it,
yeah.
yeah, this is, I think, the biggest misconception that I think people run into, is they're like, I didn't know how much like work it was going to take to be in a successful relationship. And there's like a different perspective you can take on it too, where it's like, oh man, I gotta fucking like put in my time in this relationship, what a pain in the ass. It's more of a, this is something that like most things in life, I've got to put the effort into, because it's always going to be changing. It's life. Like, you have to put
Mm-hmm.
effort into life
Mm-hmm.
in one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Like letting go of the promise that, or the myth of arrival, that, you know, you'll get to some place where you just
Right.
won't have to put in effort. Like, life is continuous work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how you hold the conversation of that work that makes it bearable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not the like, oh, was today a good day or a bad day? Well, let's count up all the good days versus bad days,
Mm-hmm.
and then put a stamp, you know, successful relationship. We had more good days than bad days.
Mm-hmm.
Because even a bad day can have like profound impact.
And it can be something really beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
it's more of like the way you hold the conversation around your bad days and the meaning that you make of them. Because our bad days, like, it is our, like, after that Halloween one time, like, that actually might have been that, like, I consider that a very healthy time in our relationship, because of the meaning that we made of it afterwards, and like the like catalyst that it was for our evolution.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
that's, there oftentimes, yeah, like when a really groundbreaking thing happens in a relationship, it really stirs up the shit that the relationship should have been focused on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, say more.
Yeah. You know, if you're, you know, if you have a big blow up, or like, this happens a lot when people cheat. You know, cheating is a lot of the times a result of so many unmet needs, or
Mm-hmm.
unspoken desires, or just basic like emotions that need to be expressed that aren't. And so
Yeah.
people can only stuff away their unmet like emotions and needs for so long before it's like, you know, the universe is going to present different things to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times when we are in that place where it's like, I need to have this emotion met and I can't find it, where with this like crummy relationship that seems to be just eating my ass the whole time. And then, you know, some easier solution, easier quotes solution shows up, and you're like, yep, that's what I'm going to do to get this. This is exactly what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that happens. And it's this, you know, it's a tremendous like blow to the relationship for so many different reasons. And it doesn't have to be, but like, that's some of the things that we do sometimes in a relationship, is when we're both, you know, ignoring what needs to be done, and eventually someone's just going to sabotage it to like force the issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
your parts will have their say.
Yeah. 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 That's right.
I think that's a fundamental thing of the inner world is like your parts will have their say one way or the other.
God, yeah, isn't
And
that the
like
truth?
you can either be a part of that conversation on a regular basis and meet that when it needs to be met, or you can wait until like that time bomb blows up.
Yeah, totally.
And in relationship, it's a triple time bomb
Yeah, say more.
because what you do affects those three relationships. So not only have you blown up your own relationship with yourself, you've blown up your partner's relationship with themselves, and then you've, scuttled the structure of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the invitation for that isn't to like try to go to war with your needs that aren't being met or your emotions that aren't being met in the relationship with your current partner. So often cheating happens because within your own self, you're trying to shove that down because you don't want to bring those parts of you into the relationship because the container of your relationship is probably not big enough for those parts of you to be in it. But if you can be courageous enough to share those parts of you and their honesty, you might be surprised at how the container of the relationship evolves to become big enough to make room for even those parts. Because like your parts that need things emotionally, intimately, whatever your needs are, like your needs aren't wrong. So the goal isn't to like get rid of those needs or to like somehow just like get those needs halfway met inside of the container that your relationship is already big enough to hold. But like to actually be courageous enough to bring those unmet needs into the light of actual conversation with your partner and to see how your relationship evolves. It might be too fragile for those needs, but then then that's the adventure you go on. But an equal possibility is that you can actually be able to keep your relationship and get those needs met, and there's an infinite amount of ways where you can have it all. All it takes is your courage, to actually just be honest about your needs and what you're feeling.
Yeah, because probably above all, the relationships take so many things. They take a lot of stuff, but courage is required from like the very start. This is one of the things that I really want to reinforce for men out there is like, you have to take a risk. Like if you actually want to like start a relationship with someone that you are like attracted to, you have to take that risk. Because there's so much pushback of like, don't be too forceful, don't be too forward, don't be this, don't be that. Like, well, then what are you supposed to do? Like relationships take a risk because it is an adventure.
Yeah.
And like the thing with it on that very same note is like, you got to be willing to suffer the consequences of that risk too. Like if you ask someone out and they say, no, fuck off. Or like, I've been told this where you're like, you're too old.
Have you?
Yeah, I've been told that plenty of times.
Wow.
And, that can also be a thing of like, well, maybe you're trying to date too young of people or something like that, or maybe whatever it means. But like, yeah, you're going to get some honest truth. And like, so you have to be willing to take that honest truth for whatever it is. And a lot of the times it has nothing to do with you anyways. But like, you have to take the risk, like, especially for either party. Like, whoever asks whoever out has to take the risk to take the action, and then the person has to take the risk to accept that action.
Yeah.
And that dynamic never goes away because you're always inviting each other into deeper and deeper risks.
That is so true.
And it doesn't have to be, like the language we're using is very limited. So it sounds like we're talking about going into like a dangerous pit here. No, it is.
But it is kind of dangerous for your illusions or for the parts of you that don't, or that are afraid to be seen.
Dangerous. I don't think it's dangerous because like you can't damage your inner world doesn't like suffer damage unless like you allow it to.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
it's hard to describe, but like,
I mean, it's dangerous in the sense that like it's vulnerable.
yeah,
I guess that's what I
yeah,
mean. Like heartbreak is always on the table with love.
yeah. I mean, that should be like that's kind of one of the things that we've always done is like when we first were dating, we had like contracts. We called it like this is the contract of this relationship, where it's like you have to settle the terms of like what is and isn't alive or like true in this relationship. And that's kind of what you have to do. Like that's the vulnerability of it, of you each, especially when you're first dating, is you're disconnecting yourself from your individuality and like taking a piece of that and turning it into this now relationship. And so often what we do is we'll take that whole individual and just throw it into the pile of relationship and be like, now this is who I am.
Yeah.
I am this relationship.
Yeah.
And you can't always do that. Like it's really easy to do that in the beginning when you're just like you're full of chemicals and full of hormones and so much other things.
Passion and
Passion.
lust.
But it's that point where the relationship starts to then kind of coalesce back into two individuals like hovering around this nucleus of a relationship. And it's like important to make sure that like that atomic structure stays like balanced.
Yeah. But then like also to know when you're being invited to kind of like restructure that dynamic, like when there are new parts of you that are kind of like, hey, I need to be seen, I have this need isn't being met. Like your parts need you to be more loyal to being honest about their needs than to like keeping the the atomic structure exactly the way that it is. And by bringing those needs to the atomic structure, that's how it evolves into like something else, into usually something more beautiful.
And that's the risk that you have to take of like, I need to put my needs forward because if I don't, they're not going to go away. But I know that my needs might like set yours off.
Yeah.
Set your parts off.
Yeah.
Or like go against the need that you have.
Yeah. And the thing is too, this is like so much easier said than done. But when you hide a part of yourself because you're worried that your partner and their relationship with themselves can't handle it, like you're actually robbing your partner of the opportunity to evolve.
And you're disempowering yourself from doing what you need to do. Like that's one of those choices that keeps you stagnant, because it doesn't give your partner the opportunity to grow with you, and you literally hamstring your own growth.
Yeah. I'm getting a little bit of clarity on kind of the next edge of adventure for me in our relationship is actually letting it be boring, not stagnant, but like ordinary, I think. Because there are parts of me that are like, yeah, as long as I keep becoming a new person, as long as we keep having these adventures, like he'll stay interested in our relation. Like as long as our relationship is moving, then like then it's safe. But like actually letting it settle, actually letting it be ordinary, not always having to evolve myself so I become someone new and novel. Like, but just being me and evolving at my own natural pace and letting our relationship evolve at its own natural pace. Like, that's really scary for my parts, because I feel like, oh man, yeah, once this isn't something like super exciting anymore, it's going to all fall apart. And so that
you're absolutely right. As soon as this gets not exciting, I'm out.
Well, I mean, and there is an element of truth to that. Like there can be,
I need you jumping through a fiery hoop every day.
Sometimes that's how my parts make it seem like.
I know,
and so it's like, okay, we don't have to
take a breath, parts.
Yeah. but it feels like on a deep fundamental level, I like that's kind of the safety that I'm being asked or invited into from, or that's the, I don't know if it's safe or not, but that's the adventure that like my parts are being invited to settle into.
And this brings me to what I would say is another hallmark of a successful relationship is when both person has a genuine interest in like finding out what are the needs of their partner on a regular basis and finding out if they're being met.
Yeah.
Because when you like most things, when you're proactive, like you usually have a better chance of like making things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even if there's nothing like on the surface going on, there's no harm in being proactive about what's going on with you in like your inner world, or like
Mm-hmm.
what's the next thing on your horizon that you're
Mm-hmm.
not really going for but kind of wanna, or
Mm-hmm.
what's the next uh phase in your life that you see coming.
Yeah.
Because I mean honestly, like your your boring phase is a very natural part of life too, because
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
yeah, I mean,
and it's just
like
so it's just like kind of the like why I feel like it's an adventure is because like there is no certainty in it. Like if I stop evolving parts, like yep, I could get just super fucking boring. But like am I gonna be more loyal to like trying to keep all these plates spinning to like try to find safety in the relationship, or am I just going to start going at my own pace and trusting my own pace? And if that actually does dissolve the relationship, like if the relationship does need that fast pace, thing to like feel complete, like I have to be more loyal to my own pace than to like, I don't know, keeping something. So it just feels like a real opportunity for my parts, whether shit all falls apart or even more perilously, if turns out it's okay and I'm even safe in my own natural pace.
mhm.
That like that's kind of like the horizon of my own evolution.
And to add on to that, like when you have that conscious awareness, then when you get to that point, then you do get to make a choice. You know, if your next adventure is something that isn't in perfect alignment with your partner's, you get to make a choice of like, do I adjust my adventure? Do I change
Mm-hmm.
even further? Or is the adventure that I have like laid out in front of me like the one I have to do? And like
Mm-hmm.
there's no changing or buts about it. Because that's when, you can have that discussion because maybe your partner is willing to like adjust their adventure to meet yours,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is sometimes where, relationships kind of phase out, where it's just like, no, my adventure is this way, yours is that way, and um, we're kind of going to go each these separate ways.
And to me, that's a successful relationship still. Like that's a very successful relationship to be able to
Hmm.
have that consciousness and like that awareness,
Hmm.
because like love gets to be there still.
Hmm. Yeah, and like, not to diminish the heartache that that will bring, especially when, when two conscious people are working in a relationship and then they realize it's diverging, like that's going to be a sad time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's going to be a low time, because it's the closing of a really important chapter. But, life is not going to just hold still
Mm-hmm.
for you guys to hold on to something for too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like honestly, at that point when the relationship is just kind of dwindling, it's better to focus on the next chapter for your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. And to let that heartbreak like
Be meaningful.
be meaningful and like change you. And, heartbreaks are always a portal for more love
Mhm.
to come in.
Yeah, it's the last, like, thing that the relationship will really do to you.
Yeah. Like a life lived earnestly will always break your heart, one way or the other. And so it's less about like trying to avoid heartbreak at all costs and more about learning how to let a new kind of love meet you in that heartbreak
Mhm.
and that grief. Hmm. Yeah.
Well, yay.
Yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to say about the being boring thing, but
Oh,
yeah, just about like it just seems like kind of in general, at least for me, because I'm such a heart like centered person, the the horizon of relationship for me is always going to be opening myself up to the possibility of receiving the love that I don't believe that I'm worthy of.
mm-hmm.
So I believe that I'm worthy as long as I keep evolving and as long as I keep moving and becoming more and more impressive. Like I believe that I'm worthy of love as long as I keep doing that. But like I don't necessarily believe that I'm worthy of love. Like that's like my edge for my parts is like when when our relationship becomes ordinary. Like when I really just let myself be ordinary, like am I still worthy of love then?
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing about being ordinary. For most people, your ordinary is probably pretty great.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, we'll see what this new ordinary Jordan has to
Yeah.
offer.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, because here's the thing, like I'm not looking for your parts to be like, "Oh no, I love ordinary Jordan." Like I will, it's like that's actually not the invitation that I'm trying to make here. It's just uh because like you get to decide based on your own adventure with your own self. Like you get to decide what you need and what you don't need.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's put it to the question: do we have a successful relationship, Jordan? And if we do, then why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I already answered this in terms of like, yeah, it's already successful to me because of what it has carried me through already, because of
Mm-hmm.
the time that we've already shared and spent together. Like I was thinking if you came to me tomorrow and was like, yeah, I really like am just overwhelmingly attracted to somebody else and like I need to like kind of pursue that, like that's my next adventure. Like yeah, I would be so sad, but also like there would just be this element of like I got his love all to myself for those glorious years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would let that be enough. And so to me like that's kind of why I feel like our relationship is successful because every single moment of it I just kept learning how to love you better and better and love myself better and better.
Yeah. There's nothing like left unsaid.
Yeah, there's nothing left unsaid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the. I agree with that too. Where if it's I always think about it in this way, which is more morbid, of like something tragic happened and you died.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What would I do? Would I, just be unable to carry on with life? And it's like, well, for a time, yeah, like there would
Mm-hmm.
be a big time of grief and reconciliation and like recentering myself about, okay, what's now true in my life? Because,
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens when massive tragic change happens. Like you have to kind of rediscover what's going on.
Yeah.
But like I know that there would be a time where I would move on to who knows if it would be better, bigger and better and greater, but it would be
Something new.
something new.
Mm-hmm.
And like I wouldn't look back with regret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like also probably one of the things that I would say is a good indicator if you're in a successful relationship where like you don't have anything like that you regret, or like you have very little that you regret, because there's some things you can't go back and change. Um, but even like if there are things that are in the past that like you're not happy about, but you did something about it when you had the opportunity, like there's not very much need for regret.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, if you are more often than not feeling like there's nothing to regret in your relationship, if it came to a crashing halt, or the world ended, like if the zombie apocalypse happened and it was like, well, we had a pretty good run, and we'll just see it out to the end.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's kind of, I don't think it's really morbid. It's kind of a good reflection to kind of think of like, if our, lives ended tomorrow, what would we think?
Yep.
And
I think that all the time. Like, I think death is the best teacher for life. And so I actually think about that quite often of like, yeah, if Joseph, because I'm so afraid of that feeling of like not taking myself up on an invitation or something, of like, if Joseph died today or tomorrow
on this
like
podcast.
Oh shit.
Oh shit, my arm.
Oh baby,
I'm too huge.
I'm too huge. Yeah, if Joseph eats himself to death, you know.
That's one of the ways I'd like to go.
What is he inviting me into that I wouldn't have taken him up on? What love was he giving me that I wasn't able to receive? You know, and also like it really puts into perspective the things that are annoying too. Like if he died and I had to go on without him, there would be a period of time where I would be heartbroken that you didn't leave. There wasn't like your wet bathing suit on the floor for me to pick up.
That never happens anyway, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I disagree. You know, so it kind of like puts any of that kind of stuff. It makes everything about you become so very endearing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that's another good like sign of your relationship, of when you just find your partner really endearing. Like the little things that they do are the things that like you enjoy the most.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When you enjoy them for their like quirky characteristics instead of like the grand image that they put out.
Yeah, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, my 3 parts need to hear that.
Listen up, 3 parts. So yeah, successful relationships. It is possible, everyone. Yeah. And it's possible if you put in the work, which honestly is the same work you need to put into yourself.
The work of your own honesty,
Yeah, I was gonna
really.
say, like, the only work you have to put in there is like being true with yourself and
Mhm.
then extending that out to your partner.
Yeah.
But it is work. So
Yeah.
so keep at it. The other sign of a successful relationship is if you listen to this podcast,
That's right.
you
Yeah.
know.
You know.
And an even better one is if you become a Patreon of
That's
this podcast.
yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Join our Patreon. We would absolutely love that. If you get value out of this podcast, please join our Patreon. It's just $5 a month, and it goes a long way.
There's a lot
for
more value
us.
than $5 waiting for you on the other end of that Patreon.
Yeah, that's true. You'll get access to being able to have listener requests. So like anything that you are going through in your relationships, anything that you're wondering about, you will be able to give that question to us and we'll answer it.
It's basically like being coached by us.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you participate, the better.
Yeah, we can't wait to spoil you with our answers.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, successful relationships, hang in there with each other, work on yourself, and extend that to your partner.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we've talked a lot about relationships kind of breaking up and not staying together. Don't let that fool you though, because I think every relationship has a chance of changing its course so that you can stay together.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be honest about if that's what you really want.
Yes, that's right.
Because if you can figure that out and the answer is a yes and a yes, then there's no real reason why you can't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
It may just take a little bit more work.
Yep.
But when you hang in the tension and do the work now, I'll tell you what, it gets way easier.
It does get easier.
It gets way easier.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, it's like anything else in life. The more that you practice doing something, which hanging in the tension of, you know, something going on in your relationship, you eventually get to a point where you're just like, yeah, this is just another cycle of this relationship we're in. And, you know, the more you learn about the dynamics of each other and masculine, feminine energy flowing in that situation, you can know pretty clearly what's going on and what you need to do.
Yeah.
And like, it won't always be smooth and it won't always be totally, you know, comfort free. But man, when it just comes back around again, because it always does, it's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the way that I would describe it too is that my parts have collected so much data of how our relationship can evolve the more honest I am, and like how I can evolve the more honest you are, and how like your honesty like only ever benefits me in the end, because I can alchemize any of it into like more of my own power. Like I've just collected so much data around that now that my parts are way less afraid to like be honest about things. And actually when we get clarity of something to be honest about, we get like kind of excited about it, because that's kind of the next phase of our adventure.
Yeah.
We always like connect even deeper around it.
All right, everybody. There you go. Relationships, they're fantastic things, and we all got to be in them because we all live together.
That's right. And we all need each other's.
Yeah. So if you're in a relationship and it's struggling, or it doesn't seem like it's going in the direction you want, what's the more vulnerable question you can ask?
That's right. What parts of you are you hiding? And what might it look like for you to bring those parts into conversation with your partner?
Yeah. And until you really ask those questions and hang in that tension, don't be too quick to put a label whether it's a success or not.
Okay, can I just say we nailed this one? This is such a good episode.
All right. Any last thoughts, Jordan James?
That was my last thought.
All right. Well, the caffeine has run dry, and it's time to put a nice little bow on this one. So
yeah,
be good to each other out there, everybody. We love you.
So much love to you.
And Heart is a Muscle podcast signing off.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, everybody. Thanks for enjoying this episode of the Heart is a Muscle podcast. We really enjoy creating this content for you, and we want to share some more resources so you can get even more content. So take it away, Jordan.
That's right. If you want to follow either one of us on socials, if you want to work with either one of us, if you want access to our YouTube channel, if you want to buy our book, links to all that stuff is on our Patreon. So that is patreon.com/theheartisamuscle. Now, you don't have to join Patreon to get access to those links.
But you probably should. The more that you support us and support this channel, the more that we can create this awesome content to help support you, because that's really why we do this. We want to make your guys' lives better, and your support really matters.
Yeah. And what you'll get when you join Patreon is a shout out in our next episode. And you will also get access to listener requests, where you will get to request what you want us to talk about in future episodes.
So from the Heart is a Muscle podcast to you guys, thank you so much for all the support, all the feedback. We really, really enjoy it. And we'll talk to you all later.
Truly love you guys so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.